hello, and welcome to another edition of the Arbiters Go to the Movies. How is everyone doing out there? I'm JP Arbiter.
Hi, Mrs. Arbiter.
And we've got an interesting treat this time around, don't we, Mrs. Arbiter?
Yes.
What are we watching today?
Cartel 2045.
This is interesting as far as the movies that we've covered for several reasons. First off, this is our first independent production. All the movies that we've covered so far have been very nostalgic and very geeky, but they've also been major productions.
Major films. This
Yeah.
is the first one that's not as major of
No,
a film.
it is a fully independent production. It's so independent that it initially was supposed to be funded on Kickstarter. They went to Kickstarter to raise $150,000 and failed.
Oh, wow.
Only making a little under $18,000 of their $150,000 goal. So,
Wow.
but eventually they got the money. So, there was that.
Yeah.
This is one of those, I don't want to skip right to these, so what do we think about this? But watching this movie reminded me, it took me to a place similar to where I was sitting in the kitchen of my house growing up on either early ass Saturday mornings or late ass Saturday nights, where there was the local WGN affiliate, which was KSMO Channel 62 in Kansas City, had these movie nights with Haphazard, who was a used car dealership in the Olathe suburb. And that was his thing, was that he hosted these shitty movie nights. And how shitty? He played things like Outland with Sean Connery, or Zardoz with Sean Connery, or Never Say Never Again.
With Sean Connery.
Yes! There were a lot of bad Sean Connery movies that were as part of this. I think he was Haphazard's favorite guy. So, there were also a lot of exploitation movies that they tried. Oh Lord, did they try to make those friendly for broadcast TV?
To carry on.
Yeah, they didn't do like I Spit on Your Grave, thank Christ, but I also distinctly remember like the original Shaft movies.
Oh my.
Were part of the film catalog. There was also one about a white guy who was blinded in Vietnam and became a swordsman. I forget the name of that particular movie, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Point is that these movies, this movie belongs in that category, very, very, very firmly. Did you have growing up any situations like that?
Not so much, but I always loved those cheesy movies like that.
Well, I mean, you and your dad were huge Trauma fans. I mean,
I'm still a big fan of those cheesy ones.
So,
those ones that make you twitch a little bit, going, "That heck?"
And there was certainly a lot of twitching to be had in this particular movie. How did we come across? How did we decide to do this? I
think we just saw the image and heard about this over Facebook one day, and we're like, that'd be a good one to see. We saw there's just this image, and you see the big robot on the cover
with Danny Trejo in a leather overcoat in front of it. I mean, I to be honest, when I first saw that, I was wondering if it was another Machete movie. You know, because Robert Rodriguez was threatening for a long time to do Machete in space, so I thought Machete with battle mechs. I guess that's the first step.
Yeah.
So, anyway, um, I, I mean, this isn't like it's a long-standing franchise or anything. This is just something stupid we saw, and we said, oh, we gotta get in on this shit. We gotta get in on the ground floor of the Juarez 2045 franchise. And here we are. There's not going to be a franchise of this, ladies and gentlemen.
Fortunately.
Although, speaking of unlikely franchises, I kind of want to do Scanners.
Oh.
Anyway, but that's a discussion for another time. Shall we get right to it?
Yes.
All right,
Let's get into the shit show.
This is Cartel 2045.
¡Párale, cabrones! Thought you could run around forever?
We begin with the newsreel, talking about the first use of combat androids in Iran, explicitly stating that it led to a civilian massacre, resulting in the world banning their use. Sometime later, the Mexican government openly beseeched the United States for overt military assistance in dealing with their drug cartel problem. And the cartels fight back by procuring banned droids, first by salvage, then by covert sales from the manufacturer. This culminates in a blinged out android being used as an executioner as it decapitates at the behest of its cartel handlers, someone whose crime is unknown unless you speak Spanish. The human then holds up an obviously fake rubber head with a wig that doesn't even look like the hair of the victim. And the title screen rolls. Cartel 2045.
Let us welcome you to Juarez with some real Mexican hospitality.
We then turn to 1970s rendered stock footage of El Paso, Texas.
Funny enough, when I first wrote the script on this, I thought it was stock footage, but, well, it was stock... Let me rephrase that. It was stock footage of El Paso, Texas, but the grainy 1970s look, no, that's just the film editing.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they're specifically going for that Robert Rodriguez Grindhouse 1970s feel to this. So.
Cool.
It would be in any other movie.
In any other movie. We are introduced to former U.S. Marine and prisoner, Carson Wright.
Played by Brad Schmidt.
Carson tries to gab with the guard, who clearly doesn't appreciate his snark. The guard abuses him in a way that we get a glance at an implant in his temple. Carson is then seated at a table in a featureless room. And from an iPhone, a hologram of a man named General Beck appears. Beck gives a low-key R. Lee Emery-style ass-chewing to Carson before giving him a classic opportunity at redemption for some unknown misdeed, including exploiting a wife and child in the bargain.
By the way, that wife and that child in the picture that you see, get a good look at them, okay? I want you to study every conceivable detail. The weave of their hair, the color of their eyes, the pallor of the skin, because you will never see them in this movie again. Anyway, continue.
Carson interestingly rejects the offer, but General Beck persists. He briefs him on a man named Estevan Flores, who developed the combat androids, and is working for Angelo Malvado. The plan is to rescue the scientist and repair the cybernetic implant in Carson's head. This will allow him to control the droids owned by Malvado.
I love the fact that he's like, yeah, no thanks, you can count me out. It's just like, here's your briefing. I said no. You need to do this. No. And then this. I said no. And then finally this. No.
Meanwhile, in Juarez, Mexico,
as opposed to Juarez, Wisconsin.
A typical cartel meeting is taking place in the back room of a tequileria, complete with big-tittied hangers-on. Thugs shooting radios with oversized handguns and yelling in unsubtitled Spanish, only to be responded to in English. Apparently, some low-level thug was promised droids and is angry that they were not delivered. All the while, Malvado,
played by Danny Goddamn Trejo,
is approaching with 2 blinged out droids with AK-47s. I don't know exactly what Malvado said, but the 2 droids open fire on the thugs and their consorts, apparently delivering an object lesson no one will forget. No one present.
You can't forget stuff when you're dead, right?
Right.
I do want to say, I want to believe that it was a commitment to the art that the Spanish was not subtitled, and that it wasn't lazy fucking oversight or a lack of budget for proper subtitling of the Spanish, despite the fact that you had many Spanish-speaking actors who could say, this is what we were saying. If you present it as what is said is not important so much as the inflection, or, who the fuck am I kidding? Fuck this movie. Anyway.
Back at the Mexican border, Carson is being driven along by a masked man who tells him just how bad things are in Juarez. He isn't kidding either, as the driver is shot at and killed by cartel thugs with a droid in tow. Shortly afterwards, a paramilitary team was supposed to pick him up shows up with guns blazing and their own vehicle is totaled. Gabrielle, the cartel patrol's leader, begins taunting Carson before a 4th vehicle shows up to provide extraction.
Honestly, I think it was 4, but I lost count and I don't care anymore.
Nervous about the change in fortune, Gabrielle commands his droid into action. Carson throws a flashbang to disorient the droid, and the team gets away in the pickup truck. Gabrielle orders the droid to stand down, and the good guys get away. Abruptly changing scenes, we see Malvado speaking with a mysterious stranger on the phone, commenting about the importance of Carson and how he needs to be taken alive. This change in plan confuses Malvado, and the stranger berates him for being too inquisitive and implores him to do his job. Gabrielle walks up from behind the camera and asks him for an explanation. Malvado insists to give his own backstory, something about a previous injury that should have killed him, a feat he attributes to Santa Muerta, as he orders Gabrielle, who we find out is Malvado's son, to bring Carson in alive. Back to Carson and his backup. They roll up to camp in a metal barn. Cursing and chatter take place as Carson is introduced to his team. The leader, Barney,
played by Timothy Salisbury,
who was deployed with Carson in Iran, Chris,
played by Power Rangers Samurai veteran Alex Hartman,
Hickley and Stratton,
who are, interestingly enough, not credited,
and Mickey,
whose name I couldn't bother to look up after the last 2 were not credited,
who we get the feeling is going to betray the fuck out of us.
It's clearly implied in this scene that there was supposed to be a holographic map of some type that was going to be shown in their as part of their overall briefing, but it wasn't put in post. So we got a bunch of idiots standing around an empty table looking intently at it as though there's something there that's very important. Way to go, guys.
Nice. Meanwhile, at an unknown location, we get our first look at Esteban Flores, working on a computer while 2 other hostages assemble combat droids by hand. Conspiring between the two hostages happens, and after Esteban declines by text message, one prisoner electrocutes himself and gets the attention of their guards. Other prisoner then triggers a flash of some kind and makes a break for it, only to be shot by Malvado as he walks in from behind the camera.
Very professional pace, blocking, by the way, walking in from directly behind the cameraman.
we find out that Esteban, trying to get leverage for his daughter's safety, sold out the prisoners. And Malvado makes the point that selling them out didn't give him any reprieve from his forced labor. We also find out that Esteban's specialty was not actually producing the droids, just programming them. Meanwhile, back at the literal ranch...
And yes, we're going to be running that joke into the ground.
Well, it is a ranch. They're in a barn. The soldiers' team computer specialist, Lucas...
Portrayed by Nathan Day.
Lucas gives Carson a pair of contact lenses that act as a HUD tied into a computer system called Adam. Carson compares Adam to a droid and rejects the upgrade, given his experience with droids themselves. But the nerd beseeches him, stating that the team sucks, and Carson relents and takes the contact lenses. And Adam says hello.
Hello, I am Baymax.
Then we learn that Carson is the only one with the contacts.
Which leads me to this point when I was typing my initial notes for this scene with that holographic map that wasn't there. Because at first I was like, oh, wait, we're supposed to be watching this from Carson's view. He doesn't have the tech, and everyone else does. And then minutes later, that entire thought is undermined because it said, oh, hey, you're the only one who's getting this. Why?
Indeed. Carson and Mickey are given a mission to recover a damaged droid, as it might possess intel on the cartel. Intel on the cartel.
Intel on the cartel.
Rhyme.
I mean, alliteration. What a show, alliteration. Don't you know alliteration? It's time to... No.
Once Carson leaves, we get a subtle hint of foreshadowing as Barney updates General Beck and flat out states he intends to betray the fuck out of Carson later in the movie. Oh, that's great.
Yay. Like we didn't see that coming.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I mean, I've seen Escape from New York.
Indeed. Carson and Mickey arrive at the junkyard, supposedly housing the droid, and try friendly negotiations with the owner through broken English. But with no money, the man is not willing to sell. After Mickey kicks the bot in frustration, it activates. And we get a glimpse of Adam Vision. Dun dun dun. Which seems to make the old man disappear as the droid goes live. And we discover two big things. The junker did not remove the gun. Why?
I think that was the actor's question as well.
I know, right? 2. The gun had an underslung grenade launcher. Well, that's a thing. A gunfight happens. A slow and painful gunfight. And the robot misses with its noob tube. Somehow. It runs out of ammunition. The droid moves to engage Mickey in hand-to-hand, with only a scrapped car body shell to protect him. Carson is briefly knocked out by interference from his implant, but recovers enough to take a guided shot at the droid's processor. After almost being killed, the junker gives them the droid on the house.
5,000! I want to see him and Bernie Mac's car dealer from Transformers negotiate with each other.
That would be amusing. That would be very amusing.
All right.
We cut abruptly to a drug lord and his 2 bitches, who seem to be engaged in some form of sexual assault on a third woman, trying forcibly to remove her clothes, while the drug lord does some cocaine.
Have you guys tried cocaine?
Gabrielle walks in, thankfully, interrupts, as scenes like this are not entertaining.
Not in the slightest.
Slapping one of the women and crushes the nuts of Miguel, insisting the third woman is a guest and should be treated as such. The mysterious woman is identified as Esteban's daughter, who is taken to him for some motivation. After a little empty reassurance, Gabrielle takes what's-her-name away and encourages Esteban to finish his work. Back at the literal ranch, we are treated to more expletive-filled trash-talking that would give broadcast television fits. The rest of the team attempted to recon a nightclub, while Carson was recovering the junked droid. But too many droids prevented them from cashing the place. Both Mickey and Adam tried to unlock the mysteries of Carson's past, which he soundly rejected.
So, what's your story? I ain't telling you. You're gonna tell us eventually. No, I'm really not. I'm gonna find out. Not really.
Nope. Later that night, we get a briefing, and finally, the holographic map works. Hallelujah. 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 A buzzword-filled briefing commences that goes down to action sequence commencing, and they get to it under the light of a yellowed full moon. Cut abruptly to Movado's shrine as he briefs Gabrielle that the Americans are coming and reminds him to take Carson alive, insisting that the droid manufacturer is hiding something. Before sending him off, he reveals that he found out that Gabrielle is getting soft on Esteban's daughter and executes her for some reason.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, this young woman was the only leverage that he had on someone that he's trying to get to program more droids for him. So of course you shoot him because your son for some reason is kind of like, I like you, and so I'm gonna treat you nice.
Mm-hmm.
It makes perfect sense, right? Of course you would shoot her.
Twitch. Gabrielle, after some lamenting, shoots the skeleton in his father's shrine and moves out. That's just weird.
Well, yeah, when you're frustrated, you shoot something that your parent owns.
I meant the shrine.
It's a Mexican culture thing.
I know. I'm well aware. At the club, one soldier snipes with a somehow suppressed 50 cal, and Adam disables the external cameras. We then see Miguel getting freaky with his cocaine and his bitches.
Have you tried cocaine?
He still notices the cameras and sends a mook to investigate before getting ready to get his freak on. We are then treated to the interior of the club, where a neo-mariachi band entertains clubgoers and poorly concealed film crew as everyone gets in position. I mean, really. Bad.
The fact that you could see people who were clearly, like, crouched down or holding boom mics or other stuff in all the cuts and whatnot.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad. Anyway. A gunfight happens across 3 levels of the club. Mickey goes off the grid, disconnecting himself from Adam, and locates Miguel, eventually executing him. Just as Barney is about to berate him for killing Miguel, Gabrielle shows up with 2 androids in tow, killing Barney and wounding another. More gunfighting happens as Carson and Mickey force the droids to crossfire and shoot each other and Gabrielle in the process. At the end of it, some rando shows up and kicks Gabrielle's body and screams, "The fuck is this?"
I'm wondering too. I am wondering what the fuck this is. I'm wondering what I'm watching. I'm wondering what just happened. This man, this cartel mook, I'm gonna call him Rando Calrissian. He has a point. The fuck is this?
Indeed. Back at the ranch, General Beck calls and learned the mission went foobar, and insists nothing else matters but finding Esteban. Later, Lucas the tech geek announces he managed to tap into the junk droid's memory feed, and has isolated the cartel's main assembly plant for combat droids. The following morning, Lovato is told of his son's death while enjoying Breakfast of Champions.
Cocaine!
He then breaks rule number 1 and shoots the messenger, before getting a call from the informant. We are not told what is happening, but we can take an educated guess. Back at the literal ranch, Lucas tells Carson that he created 2 force multipliers for the team that are now down to 2 men. One is an EMP IED.
That's the movie words, not ours. You know, I'm used to things like EMP grenade, pulse grenade, zapper, shocker, shock grenade. What else is here? Droid popper. That's from Clone Wars. Or just EMP. Just that's it. So
Yep.
why they decided to use the politically loaded term IED is beyond me. But anyway.
Whatever. And the other is hijacking the junked droid and allowing Adam to take control. The good guys are locked and loaded and get in their Chevy trucks.
Oh, wait, I can't do that. Bob Seger might block us again.
After testing their new EMP grenades, which actually explode for some reason, the team clears the facility. But we learned there's a fatal flaw in Adam's ability to hijack a droid. He is unable to work as a cyber warfare platform while operating a droid, thus rendering his best functionality completely useless. He cannot multitask.
Well, what the fuck ever. We got a robot on the team.
True. After now learning the chemical makeup of cocaine, we encounter a new type of combat droid, which I'm calling Fetless.
Battletech fans get it.
Fighting happens. The gunfight makes Lovato from his cocaine-fueled stupor. Meanwhile, in the security room, Mickey overtly talks, presumably to Lovato, revealing that he betrayed the fuck out of everyone, and Lucas somehow doesn't pay attention.
I'm gonna miss Lucas.
Carson throws an EMP at Fetless, but it proves to be ineffective. Adam engages the mech in hand-to-hand, and a shot to the optics stuns the Fetless. But it quickly recovers and re-engages Adam Droid, before Carson tosses another EMP grenade and takes some shots to the exposed back to finally take it down. It is too early to celebrate as another EMP grenade attaches to Adam Droid and detonates, knocking Carson off his ass and seemingly destroying Adam Droid.
All the time during this fight scene, there's a studio light that is visible above the constructed walls of this warehouse that is flaring its light directly into the camera. And it pissed me off the entire time watching this.
I can see that.
No, you couldn't. That's the problem.
Well, I can see how annoying it is, though.
Mm-hmm.
We then see Mickey walking up from Carson's perspective and knock his ass out. He's dragged back with a captured Lucas, while the other two Marines are taken care of by the cartel. We get Mickey's half-assed justification for betraying the fuck out of the team before he slaps Lucas around.
A noble pastime.
One could say. The two are brought before Lovato, where he reveals that he is stealing the droid manufacturer's money, and is now and has not built a new droid, but a full battle armor suit. He stabs Carson to show him Mexican hospitality and gags Lucas. He orders Estevan to power up the suit. After threatening his dead daughter, Estevan does so. Trying to power up the suit disrupts the implant in Carson's head. We finally find out that the implant malfunctioned and caused... We finally find out that the implant malfunctioned and caused the Iranian massacre in the first place in the opening scene. Oh, that's great. Then we enter the moral standoff where we then enter the moral standoff part of the movie with Lucas's life on the line. But being bored with the wait, Lovato starts up the suit himself and opens fire with the droid's A-10 cannon, decapitating Lucas.
In one of the most hilarious shitty special effects scenes ever. It's kind of funny because here's Lucas just on his knees, hands tied behind his back, and he's there, and this thing is clearly a cut down GAU-8 in its design.
Mm-hmm.
The 30mm cannon that's normally mounted on an A-10. And so it's firing at a significantly reduced fire rate compared to its aircraft fire rate.
Mm-hmm.
Lucas, a bunch of shots go all around Lucas. One shot hits his chest,
mm-hmm.
and there's just like a hole about the size of like, I want to say one of those Papa John's pizza garlic cups
mm-hmm.
in his chest. And then his head disappears. And after his head disappears, then there's the burst of blood.
Yeah, it's almost like a balloon popping.
It really is. And the fact that there's no splatter, no spray, no gore, it's just all of a sudden, beer can hole in the chest, psh, head gone.
It's not even bloody mess from Fallout or anything.
No, it's bloody less. So, but
yeah,
I'm gonna miss Lucas. He was probably the best character in the movie, or the best acted character in the movie. I admit this is not a high bar.
Fair enough. Immediately, Adam Droid barges in, seemingly none the worse for wear, and opens fire while Carson frees himself. Fighting happens while Lovato is clearly confused and takes a Coke flashback. Eventually, he orders Estevan to fire up the suit entirely before announcing that he already killed his daughter and mortally shoots Estevan. After buckling his seatbelt, he pastes Mickey.
Well, that's one bribe he doesn't need to pay.
True.
I mean, Mickey was on his payroll, and now, hey, guess what? I don't need to give you any money.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. In his death throes, Estevan teaches Adam the meaning of life.
Maybe we can learn it too. Ba-dum. Sorry. Why do I keep referencing these better movies?
I wonder. We find out that he was ordered by the droid manufacturer to intentionally sabotage Carson's implant for reasons that are never fully explained. And it can work perfectly fine. Oh, that's good to know now.
Yeah. How can we get it to work perfectly fine, though?
Yeah, that's the question.
And it's never explained.
Mm-hmm. Cliffhanger. Outside, Tweedledee gets ambushed by a kung fu master and for some reason calls off Tweedledum from shooting his ass.
For the record, we knew both Mrs. A and I knew that these characters had names, but considering these two were not credited in the movie, we just stopped caring.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened.
You know, the only identifier is that Tweedledum is the black guy, and the only reason why he's Tweedledum is because I saw him second.
Could be thing 1 and thing 2 for all we explained.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe I should have gone with thing 1 and thing 2.
Eh.
Why am I referencing better movies?
Anyway.
Also, why does a cartel guy have a kung fu master? Who is still clearly Hispanic?
I don't know. They like their spices too?
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just trying to make up some better bullshit than the movie does. Fighting happens. Running around the corner, Adam tells him to prepare for battle armor Malvado. For some reason, the suit's A-10 cannon cannot penetrate a waste management dumpster that somehow exists in Mexico.
Seriously, you can see bits and bobs of the Waste Management Incorporated logo that have been digitally not even removed. They're just trying to cover it up. And while the actors are hiding behind it, and for some reason 30mm shells, even if they were just solid lead, can't penetrate.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, more cartel thugs show up in a technical and flank Carson and Tweedledee. Adam Bot fires up 20 cartel droids and confiscates the Fatless's machine gun, while Tweedledee comes to the rescue by ramming Movado Mech at 1, 2, 3. Tweedledee comes to the rescue by ramming the Malvado Mech
With his truck.
with his truck.
Try it again.
Tweedledee comes to the rescue by ramming Malvado Mech with his truck. Malvado responds with a burst from his Malvado responds with a burst from a grenade launcher, incinerating both Tweedledee and Tweedledum, making Carson the only member of the team surviving.
And the cast, now that I think about it. I think the only human cast members that remain in this movie are Carson and Danny Trejo.
Oh my. Carson's implant goes ballistic, causing a full-blown seizure as he hears a woman's voice in a flashback. His HUD is showing Xavier, initiate.
And really, that's all we're going to say about this, because honestly, this sequence of flashbacks to a laboratory where I presume the implant is getting implanted, and this woman talking and what, it goes on for a few minutes.
Too long.
Just, what are we doing now? So let's pull a Prince Humperdinck. I'm referencing better movies again, and switch to the end and skip to the end.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is immediately after this sequence.
Adam Droid makes a battle armor swarm attack, while a star's worth of cartel droids overwhelm Malvado Mech and force him to eject. He crawls out and gives a usual villain boast before Carson pastes Malvado with the Fatless cannon. We then get a big moral of the movie. Violence solves problems, Adam. Doesn't make you feel good. And the movie abruptly ends.
So, Mrs. Arbiter, first off, it is fitting, by the way, with all of the abrupt cuts and the abrupt as hell ending, that the studio that produced this is called Abrupt Studios. I shit you not.
Oh my.
So, Mrs. Arbiter, what did you think of Cartel 2045?
What the fuck did I just watch?
Oh!
I was just watching that. I was like, the Twitch.
I mean...
That is not a movie to drink to.
No, it is not. You will get alcohol poisoning. Here's the thing. First off, when it comes to movies like this, you always have to ask yourself a question. What's worse? A movie that is bad but unremarkable, or a movie that embraces how bad it is and shows how bad it is to the world?
That's the question, isn't it?
The Star Wars Holiday Special is bad. But it is so bad that it's actually kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Why do you think it has been a black market item for so long? So this movie, there is this big, thick, neon pink line between camp and crap. This movie firmly sits in the crap side of it.
Yes, it does.
And it's such a shame because it could have been so campy and glorious. And it takes a lot of the steps that's needed for it. The Kung Fu Master at the end. The inexplicable Kung Fu Master. Absolutely.
The fact that the robots have shadows.
Well, I mean...
Which is just... It pays attention to these details that's just kind of like...
Yeah, that's the other thing, is that the droids... They felt like they were rendered in such a way that they had presence in the world. They didn't move fluidly, but they moved in a way that was kind of believable. If that makes sense.
I think as you described in Resident Evil, it was a lovingly crafted shit.
But those robots were the only part of the movie that was lovingly crafted, and that was the problem. All of the actors were taking themselves way too seriously. They needed to be like this was the most serious movie ever created. The only person who was clearly having any fun in this was Danny Trejo.
Yeah.
But I think that's because he knew what he kind of had a feeling of what he was getting involved in. So
yeah.
I've already commented that I want to believe that the commitment to Spanish language with no subtitling was an artistic decision, even though it wasn't. So no need to put in there. It's just the other side of it is that with so many visual effects and practical effects too that either were not put in
or just missed the mark,
or just completely missed the mark, or things that were misplaced, like visible lighting and rafters. Mm-hmm. Like it's The Exorcist all over again. I mean, God, I think that's the part that bothers me the most. This movie wasn't just a flop; it was a technical flop. I could have forgiven so much about the narrative and the plot and the acting
if their technical issues were
yes,
not there.
If the technical filmmaking was there. I mean, I will say this. The movie itself is, to make a comparison to one of the great shit filmmakers, Ed Wood. Mm-hmm. Ed Wood knew nothing about making movies. Mm-hmm. Okay? But he was passionate about making movies. I firmly believe that for this guy, it was much the same thing. he wanted to make a movie, and he wanted to get a movie published. And he was passionate about it, and he worked his ass off on it, and this was the best we could get.
And amen to that. I mean, if you have a passion for something, you got a passion for something.
But you gotta be able to pull it off. And it would be amazing just what one more round at the editing table could have accomplished.
Indeed.
So.
Indeed.
That was Cartel 2045. May this movie forever rest in peace. I will never watch it again.
Nope. Hope. That is, no. No.
So, on to a more positive note, Mrs. Arbiter, I know what we're going to do next time.
Really?
When we did this, when we did the first series of these, as filler for our Battletech podcast, during that whole Harmony Gold lawsuit, in the last one, we said we were going to do Gremlins. But we never did because A, we weren't sure if we were going to be continuing this series, and then B, we kind of got distracted by doing all the other stuff that we wanted to do. I mean, I was all about doing G.I. Joe. So I think that we should fulfill that promise.
And hey, Christmas is around the corner.
Christmas is indeed around the corner. So, yeah. Next time we'll be doing Gremlins, kids. This time for real. We'll be seeing you.